Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butterbeer.
Welcome to the Three Broomsticks. We invite you to pull up a chair, grab a butterbeer, and settle in for a hearty discussion about Harry Potter. I'm Irvin Cateman.
I'm Sophia Jenkins.
And I'm Ev McLaughlin. And today our guest is Line Egelund. Line, thank you so much for joining us again. You were with us for one of our previous episodes, and we're delighted to have you back. Could you just remind us about your Hogwarts house, your journey to Potter, favorite book, favorite character, all this good stuff?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me back. It was a wonderful experience last time, so I'm happy to be here. My name is Line Egelund, and my Hogwarts house is Gryffindor, but I call myself a Griffin Puff because I have very much Hufflepuff traits, and it just fits.
Yay!
Yay, Gryffindor!
Yay, Puff!
On the previous episode I was with you guys, I think it was episode 16 maybe, I already mentioned my journey into Harry Potter, which was my mom trying to sell it to my sister by reading out loud, and I was like, oh, this is wonderful, I need more. And it just stuck with me, and I keep revisiting it at least once a year. I read them or listen to the audiobooks or just some type of the books I need, either that be in Danish or some other language. But what I've found in recent years is that I've really been missing that whole experience of waiting for the next book to come out. And I think I finally have that again, that experience of waiting for books to come out. I started reading the Fourth Wing series, so that's just, I've been missing that. Because I haven't had that experience since Harry Potter, just waiting for a book. So that's wonderful to revisit and get that small childish feel of waiting again.
I know what you're saying, because, like, the excitement and the anticipation is fun.
Exactly.
Because, like, I've been having that recently with Jonathan Stroud's latest trilogy, The Outlaw Scarlet and Brown. Isn't it incredible?
Amazing.
Yeah, like, the third one just came out, and I've been ordering them from the UK, because they come out there a couple months earlier, and, like, when it comes in the mail, and I get to read it, and of course I reread the first books every time, and, like, they're so good.
Exactly, so that's, it feels a little bit like reminiscing of my childhood to get that waiting experience again, and I remember waiting in line at midnight at the bookstore for the books to come out. I'm not gonna do that now, but still the anticipation of a new book. So as for my favorite book, last time I said it varies, and it still does that. I've been leaning more towards book 4, but then I reread book 6 again, and I'm back. It's still the Half-Blood Prince. Yeah. And my favorite character is, as always, Tonks. She's just badass.
Yeah. We're so glad to have you back with us here. It's gonna be great. And I'm Ev, tell us what we're talking about.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that since you're back on liking the book 6 the most, this is the best episode to be on.
Absolutely.
Because today, for episode number 58, we're gathered to discuss chapter 1. Okay, I can do this big number. 138th chapter of the Harry Potter series, Draco's Detour, which is Half-Blood Prince chapter 6. So, we encourage all our listeners to read the chapter before listening, but we're not your mom, so you don't have to. But I would highly recommend it, because I was rereading it and I've forgotten how much is actually in this chapter other than the Draco's Detour, because I just remembered it as that last part, but there's loads going on. Loads of good stuff. So, recommended reading for This episode is by our very own Irvin, HP Boy 13.
Hi.
Which is Borgin, Burke, and the Half-Blood Prince.
Yes, it's a 2017 essay of mine on MuggleNet that I really, really enjoyed working on. And also, I think it's so appropriate that we have Lena on this episode, because Lena was one of the beta readers for my Malfoy book. So, like, you've already seen a lot of my analysis on Draco and what he gets up to here, and it's gonna be great talking about it with you in real time.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I was just really looking forward to get to poke you about these things that I've been reading and just get you to fledge them out even more than you did in the book. So that's brilliant.
Yes. But also, final edits on my book are due this Friday. Like, we're moving commas around. So absolutely no one say anything insightful or clever or brilliant that I need to then change my book and put in.
Oh, that's
okay?
not a problem at all.
Oh, really? Because I think it's going to be a big struggle for us.
Yeah, I'm like, Irvin, you're just basically saying we shouldn't have a podcast about this? Like, what do you mean?
Absolutely, we should just stop recording now.
And unless you can just talk, Irvin, you can just give us a talk about this, and we will just nod and say, this is very brilliant, and then we will leave it at that.
Yep, no ideas, no notes, nothing. Oh, my publisher's gonna kill me. We did not know when the edits were due when we scheduled this episode, and I was like, yep, well, it is what it is. That'll teach them to send me drafts in PDF form. But anyway, before we get into that and I get a growing list of edits to make, we want to give a huge shout out to Lori Young over on our Patreon, who bought us this round of drinks at the pub. So yay!
Thanks, Lori!
Thanks so much. Listeners, if you want to buy us around at the pub, please head on over to patreon.com/Three Broomsticks with the numeral 3 to sign up. We're offering lots of bonus content. Lately, Sophia and I have been talking about Harry Potter party planning, which, like, I think that's valuable content.
Definitely.
Yeah, but we also have chats with the hosts, you can get on-episode shout-outs, and so much more. And we'd really appreciate your help in keeping the lights on here at the Three Broomsticks, so we can talk about Harry Potter for a long time to come. And now, we must offer a toast to the comments on episode 55. This was our episode about Prisoner of Azkaban Chapter 10, The Marauder's Map. And we raise our glass to commenter Absent-Minded Raven, who said, I like the fan theory that the reason Harry can recall his mother's death so clearly when the Dementors are around is that it's Voldemort's worst memory and fear, his own death, via the Scarcrux. And I was like, that's so cool!
Yeah.
That is a brilliant theory.
Also, excellent word, Scarcrux. I like it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I buy it. I think that makes sense.
It's something I've been discussing on length with people that are not as into Harry Potter as we are. They're like, but he was a year old. How could he remember? That's just unrealistic. I'm like, okay, so you want to grab on that, but that's fine, let's do it. But this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, since we live in a world of magic, like, I don't think it's crazy to say that the Dementors bring back your worst memory, no matter whether you can consciously remember it or not. So, like, I don't think it would be crazy if it was just, like, it is Harry's memory, but, like, he doesn't have the memory, but it's inside him somewhere. Just like with the, Pensieve, like, you can access memories that, like, in such, like when you put a memory in the Pensieve, it, like, has that, like, very precise detail that is, like, not what anyone's memory actually looks like. Like, nobody remembers the exact wording or anything like that, but you have that somewhere in your head, and you can access it through the Pensieve. So it could be something like that, where the Dementors can access that memory, even if your human brain is not able to. But that being said, I do really love the Scarcrux theory as well. I think both could totally be true.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Sophia. Like, I also think that, like, yes, magic is the answer.
Right.
Exactly.
Because, like, especially in the world of Harry Potter, like, memories seem to be something that is just sort of, like, deep inside you, that, like, yeah, can be accessed via a variety of ways of magic. Like, we have legilimency, we have the pensieve, and we have the Dementors. So, yeah, I think just sort of, you know, one of the, I guess, magical premises in this world is that, like, you have all your memories buried deep down.
Yeah, but that's very plausible even without magic, because we know that traumatic experiences in very early childhood will stay in your body and create all sorts of havoc. So it is plausible that the memory is within Harry, but him seeing this clearly makes so much sense when it's Voldemort's worst memory.
Because he has nightmares while he is still with the Dursleys before he even knows he's a wizard.
Yeah, but those are very, how do you say that? Very, very difficult for him to understand what it is, because he just sees some green light.
Yeah, it's like a green flash, and he was like, oh, that's
yeah,
weird.
Exactly.
And even as muggles, like, we don't know how the memories are formed and stored that well. Like, as much as we're trying to research and understand the brain, it's very difficult, and we don't really know the details. So
it would also explain why Harry responds so badly to the Dementors, because this memory is not only his worst memory, but it's also Voldemort's worst memory. So it's like that combined fear and trauma and stuff, like, might explain why he has such a strong response.
But isn't there also something about Harry responding worse to them because he also have a piece of Voldemort's soul? So he has double up on negative effect on the Dementors.
I mean, not double up, like
no,
1.03
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. After-minded Raven, well done, as always. Brilliant comments. Gave us so much to think about. And with that, I think we should dive on in to Draco's Detour. And, of course, we're going to dive in with a chapter summary from Sam, which I believe Sam expects one of us to read aloud. Ev, would you like to take this one?
yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, everybody has their seatbelt on. We're all good?
It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Indeed. Okay, so Draco's Detour. Malfoy is certainly not a Death Eater. He just happens to wince when Madame Malkin stabs right where a dark mark would be. And he just happens to threaten Borgin just like his father would. But his father is just a sleazy lobbyist of one, not an actual Death Eater. Wait a second. This chapter doesn't start with Harry's obsession with Malfoy, but instead Harry's 16th birthday, which is marred by talk of the downtrodden events of Voldy's little takeover. After becoming Quidditch captain, something which Ron pretends to be pleased with, the whole gang and Irvin's favourite character of all time, Rubius Hagrid, keeper of the keys and grounds and monsters and pink umbrellas, go to Diagon Alley. Fred and George certainly have a flair for business, and to everyone's surprise, they're not murdered for you-know-poo, for you-know-who. We will get to that later. But the teenagers are growing and need new robes. Thus, Harry's suspicion begins, and Malfoy runs away as soon as his mark stings. But all is not over with Draco, for he takes a detour to Nocturne Alley. The GT, that's the Golden Trio folks, follow him, and using extendable ears, listen to Mallory, listen to Malfoy try and get something. And Hermione fails miserably at trying to get any information out of the shopkeep.
Yes.
And here
Excellent.
we are. Our dear
I'm sorry,
Mallory is back again.
I didn't mean to laugh. It's just, oh, Rubius. Oh, Irvin. I love it. It gets me every time.
So see, a lot happens. We cover a lot of ground.
There's so much going on here. Oh, it's so much fun. So I actually thought we could start with, before diving into the events of the chapter, with a brief fandom history lesson. Before Half-Blood Prince came out, this was actually one of the 3 chapter titles that Joe revealed ahead of, the book being published. So she revealed that there were going to be 3 chapters in book 6 titled Spinner's End, Draco's Detour, and Felix Felicis. And I just remember the fandom had so much fun, like, theorizing about, like, what it could mean, and what would happen, and who the hell was Felix anyway. And I definitely think this was probably the chapter of the 3 that we came closest to figuring out. We're like, oh, so Draco's gonna, like, get up to some mischief. Okay. Yeah. It was a good theory as far as they went. But yeah, it was so much fun. Like, honestly, I would have loved to, like, get a steady drip of chapter titles from Joe, and we'd just have so much fun theorizing.
Right, this is an interesting one because, like, the other 2 you mentioned, are, like, it's very hard to guess what they're about. Like, they're very, they're chapter titles that are, like, don't give much away about the chapter. And, like, if she had wanted to choose a 3rd one, she could have chosen, like, excessive phlegm or something. Like, nobody would have ever guessed that was about Fleur. But it's interesting that she, like...
You know what? I bet someone would.
Yeah, probably. But it's interesting that she chose one that is a little bit more straightforward of a chapter title.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because she wanted to sort of set the fandom on the track of, like, the Malfoys.
Right.
Like, like, Draco is going to matter in this story. Like, think about what's going to happen to Draco in this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's not just a red herring for once.
Yeah. Well, because we're going to get into it later on in this chapter, but, like, she does so much to sort of, like, put it in your face that, like, Draco matters this time, that, like, no, y'all should actually pay attention to Draco this time. So I imagine that she sort of started that process even before, the book was published and been like, y'all, over here, pay attention over here.
Yeah, hashtag Draco matters.
Exactly.
But it also makes sense because if there's one thing Joe does well is to write 3-dimensional characters. So Draco needed to evolve in some sort of way. And now it's his turn to shine. I really love it.
Yes, me too. And so this is also the only chapter title to mention Draco. We do get one mentioning the Malfoys. We get Malfoy Manor in Deathly Hallows. But yeah, I feel like that slightly surprised me when I thought about it. I was like, really? Like, Draco never factors into the chapter title other than this?
Because he didn't matter until now.
I don't think it's that, because Ron never gets into a chapter title ever. So...
Because he doesn't matter.
He doesn't matter either.
That checks out.
Wow.
Poor Ron.
Yeah, but it is interesting. I think she just, like, wanted to take, I guess Draco is often, like, kind of a side character in most chapters. Like, he's not the most important thing. But there are some other chapters where he could have been mentioned, but I think she really liked this alliteration here and wanted to bring him into this chapter.
Oh, Half-Blood Prince is so alliterative. It's so much fun.
I so love that about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, okay, we get into it, and the chapter starts without any detours, with, some domestic bliss over at the Weasley household. And so one of the things that struck me is, the narration says that basically the trio and Ginny, spend their days playing Quidditch 2-a-side. And then it says that, it was Ron and Ginny versus Harry and Hermione, and that Ginny was good and Hermione was terrible, so they were evenly matched. And I was like, Harry must be really good at Quidditch. 'Cause, like, Ginny is implied to be a very good player, and Ron is also decent.
Yeah.
And Hermione is completely useless.
Hermione
so
barely takes off the ground because she's scared of
Right,
falling.
Hermione... I feel like Hermione would have sort of been the way I was in high school gym class, where I would, like, stand in the middle of the basketball court with my arms folded, and then, like, occasionally someone would, like, pass me the ball and be like, I don't want to take it back. So... I that's how I picture Hermione playing Quidditch.
Yeah.
Hermione will be running around the ground trying to catch the balls from down there.
Yeah. Like,
I've got it, guys!
Exactly.
Throw down
throws it
here!
back up. Yeah. To be honest, this line always pissed me off, because we know that, like, Ginny is the like only one that we know of from the team to go on to be like a professional Quidditch player, and that Harry's just like, oh yeah, she's good, but like not great or anything, like she's fine, kind of. And I always just felt like, wow, like I felt like Harry was being a bit sexist here, that he was like, obviously Ron is better than Ginny because he's a boy. And like,
That's not how I read that at all.
No, me neither.
Me neither.
I thought he was actually I thought the implication was that Ron is actually really bad.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought the implication was that, like, Ron and Ginny are both good. Maybe Ginny's a little better.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah,
I actually got really, really happy when you said, Irvin, that the implication was that Ron is good, Ginny's very good, Hermione is horrible.
terrible.
Because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, thank God. Then it's just me thinking, Ron is horrible, Hermione's horrible, but the other two will make up for it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought when I read that. you know.
Interesting.
That was my understanding.
I just like, because Harry has never played Quidditch with Ginny before, like, I don't know, I just like, I thought he was being like judgy. But that makes more sense. But still, I'm like, I think that Ginny must be like at least at Harry's level to be like, to be going on. But I guess maybe she hasn't had a whole year. I don't think
she is yet.
Okay, that's true, yet. Like,
Yeah, that's the thing. She's had half a year on a very shitty Gryffindor Quidditch
that's
team.
true.
She's played
Ouch.
like 2 matches.
Well, it's true.
I mean, come on. Right, like, Andrew Kirk and Jack Sloper, like, it's not the, dream team over there.
And Ron.
And Ron.
Yeah, I that makes sense that she's not like quite at his level yet, but I think she will get there because, like, in order to have gone international, like, professional, she has to be like at Harry's level at least.
Yeah. I mean, though the implication is that Harry absolutely could have become a professional
Yes,
player.
but like they have to be
absolutely.
like about equally good, right?
Yeah. Very good stuff. And sort of the other surprising part is that, like, if they're doing 2 aside, then I presume they're, like, all chasing and keeping, that, like, it's basically basketball in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, the fact that Harry is good enough at that, to still match the Weasleys is very impressive.
Right, especially because Ginny is a chaser and Ron is a keeper, and Harry doesn't play either of those positions, and Hermione doesn't play at all.
Doesn't play.
No, but we do know from the Order of the Phoenix that during a warm-up practice, they always alternate the positions and do warm-ups where they throw the ball around. So Harry, he does have experience with keeping his balls in the air.
I'm not sure they always do
Yeah.
that. I'm not sure they always do that, or if that was just like the first practice where they were, the first practice in the 5th year where they were like getting used to like being in a new team together. I'm not sure if they always do that, but anyway.
I mean, we did that a lot in our Quidditch practice, so that would make sense.
So you're
Yeah,
the
but
expert.
I mean,
There
we
we go.
don't- And Sophia, you're right. We don't know if they usually do that, but we're never introduced a lot to their practices, really.
No. Well, a
Only
little
when
bit.
things go
Except
askew.
when they go really poorly.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of it is just Harry's broom. Like, Harry doesn't have to be a good chaser. If he's on a firebolt with, like, the Weasleys on clean sweeps, then I can see why he's flying circles around them.
Right,
Perhaps
yeah.
literally.
Yeah, which is kind of frustrating, but...
Yeah.
So the introduction to this part of the chapter could have been Harry was on a very good broomstick.
Yes.
Yes. And therefore, it didn't matter what the Weasleys did, he always won. Because life ain't fair.
Well, I mean, if they felt it wasn't fair, I think he's kind of nice enough to his friends that they would have taken turns on the firebolt if it was really making that much of a difference in a 2-a-side. I think he did.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, so Hermione doesn't care enough. Ginny, I feel like, would be like, no, I'm gonna fly on my broom and show you up, and, like, this is the broom I need to practice on anyway.
Agreed.
And Ron would be a whiny bitch, but I feel like Ginny and Hermione would, like, shout him down.
But, like, Ron
Yeah,
as the keeper would probably, like, not need to fly that far anyway. Like, he's just kind of hovering around there. So I'm not sure it makes a big difference for the keeper, more for the chaser.
And
but
Hermione
I presume that
just
he's
wants
playing,
it
like,
to be over.
keeper chaser. Yeah. Yeah, Hermione's like, if he's on a better broom, he can get to 150 and we can all, like, go inside for tea. Which, again, was my attitude in high school gym. But once they do go inside for tea, there's always bad news waiting for them. This is sort of our chapter to be like, so what's going on in the wider wizarding world? Which I always enjoy, because it really sort of, it gives you a sense for, like, the wider world, and, like, it makes it feel lived in, where they're like, oh yeah, like, here's the news. So, our first bit of news is that Igor Karkaroff is found dead in a shack up north with a dark mark over it. And this is just, like, a loose end from Goblet of Fire, that we're like, yeah, no, like, Karkaroff isn't gonna be part of the plot, like, no, there's no more story, like, no, we're done here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing more to that death than tying up a loose end.
Yeah. Well, it's also a chance to foreshadow about Regulus Black again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the number of times Regulus Black was name-dropped in book 5 and 6, like, honestly, it's no wonder that we all knew RAB was gonna be Regulus, because we're like, okay, we get it, we hear you.
And it shows, kind of, like, we have a comparison between a case where Voldemort was looking for a Death Eater who had left, versus in Regulus's case, like, nobody was looking for him. He died so quickly because, like, he chose to die. Like, so I think it's an interesting foreshadowing there, where it's like, oh, Regulus probably wasn't important enough for, like, people to find him, go looking for him and find him that quickly.
Yeah. But the other thing is, so he's found in a shack up north. So, like, up north meaning, like, England or Scotland, right?
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't actually assume that. I assumed, like, a very northern country or something.
I mean, Ev, you can speak more to this as, someone from the Isles, but, like,
well, they didn't say north of what. So I would guess if it was a northern country, they probably would have said somewhere in the northern Europe or something. But
right,
if they just say north, I would guess maybe just Scotland, because it's in the north.
Yeah, like, that's always how I understood it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just hadn't thought of it that much. It just doesn't seem very smart.
That was gonna be my question. I was like, why on earth is Karkaroff still in the UK?
Right.
Like, either he dumb, or was this gonna be, like, a double bluff? It was like, well, the last place they'd think to look for me would be in the UK, because that'd be so dumb. So therefore, I'm gonna hide out in the UK, because they won't think to look for me here.
Yeah.
No, but we know that he's stupid as a doornail. I don't know if that's a saying, but now it is. Because he's, in the Goblet of Fire, all he does is whine about the mark. Look, it's getting more evident, and it's getting more clearly now. And Snape's like, then flee already, gah. And he stays.
That's true. Yeah, because if he'd gone to, like, some, like, country, like, I don't know, like, let's say he went to, like, South America or something, it's like, does Voldemort care enough to, like, send his Death Eaters searching across, like, the entire globe? Like, I don't think so. I think he'd just be like, okay, he's not my issue anymore. So, like, yeah, it's pretty dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just, for Voldemort, it's just a revenge plot. There's no imminent threat from Karkaroff at this point. It's just revenge.
Right.
So he wouldn't go searching for him across the world or the globe. Oh.
I mean, he can send somebody else to search for him, because I don't think he's important enough, as you say, to personally find him. But
like, think how many countries there are in the world. Like, would he really send a Death Eater to, like, go search in every single country? And, like, thinking about, like, all of the, like, magical enchantments you can use to, like, protect yourself from sight. Like, how would this, like, it would have to be a very skilled wizard who'd be able to find him, and it's just, like, not worth his trouble. I think it was,
if you wanted something specific from him, then maybe, but I don't think he was really worth anything much.
Well, Because, like, we see how hard it is to find wizards who don't want to be found, because in Deathly Hallows, there's a whole cottage industry of bounty hunters.
Right.
The Snatchers. And I was like, okay, if they can't even find the teenagers who are on the run in the UK, like, to the point where they need to outsource it and get contractors in, like, I can't see them being like, oh, like, we're gonna find someone in Argentina, because Karkaroff needs to pay.
Yeah.
So really, like, this is on Karkaroff. Not to victim blame, of course, but he should have fled the country.
It's true.
Yeah. Nailed it.
But it's not just Karkaroff. Plenty of smarter people disappear as well. So we get the news that Florian Fortescue has disappeared. R.I.P. the ice cream man.
Aww.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a sad
At which
one.
point I feel like I would need to point out to Patrick that ice cream men do exist.
I feel like that's an inside
Does he not
joke,
believe
but I
that
have
they
no
do?
idea what that means.
No, when we were podcasting with Patrick, we were talking, like, somehow ice cream trucks came up, and he, like, didn't think ice cream trucks were real.
Oh.
Like,
I kind of
okay.
remember this
he
now,
thought that
that's
was just,
crazy.
like, an urban legend that, like, there are just trucks driving around, like, delivering ice cream to children. and Sarah and I were like, no, like, that exists. That, like, that happens.
That's really funny.
I can send him a photo. Every second Tuesday on my street, we have the ice cream truck coming.
Exactly.
It's blue, and there's a lot of pictures on ice cream on it, and we have a tendency of telling kids in Denmark that when you hear the bell ring, it means it's empty. That's a lie.
Oh, that is a lie.
Oh, that is diabolical.
I know.
But yes, Florian Fortescue, the very real ice cream man, has disappeared. And Harry's upset about it because Harry's like, oh, he used to give me free ice cream. And I was like, I get you, Harry. Someone gave me free ice cream, I'd be upset when they disappeared too.
Definitely. Yeah.
I would, and I genuinely was upset because of his wonderful history mind. I mean, he's so knowledgeable, and that's just gone. But ice cream too, of course.
Yeah. Well, so his historical knowledge is actually the reason he disappeared. So this was actually very careful setup for a subplot that Joe had planned for Deathly Hallows that kind of never came to be. She wrote about it on Pottermore in a piece about Florian Fortescue. So she said, I imagine the historically minded Florian might have a smattering of information on matters as diverse as the Elder Wand and the Diadem of Ravenclaw, the information having been passed down in the Fortescue family from their august ancestor. The, Headmaster Fortescue whom we constantly hear about in Hogwarts. As I worked my way nearer to the point where such information would become necessary, I caused Florian to be kidnapped, intending him to be found or rescued by Harry and his friends. The problem was that when I came to write the key parts of Deathly Hallows, I decided that Phineas Nigellus Black was a much more satisfactory means of conveying clues, which, true.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Florian's information on the diadem also felt redundant, as I could give the reader everything he or she needed by interviewing the Grey Lady. All in all, I seem to have had him kidnapped and killed for no reason. He is not the first wizard whom Voldemort murdered because he knew too much or too little, but he is the only one I feel guilty about because it was all my fault.
That was the only one that was her fault. Regardless of
Yeah.
the fact she wrote the whole series. That's funny.
No, but I actually remember reading about this a long time ago, and I was gonna ask about it today, but it's so nice to have it confirmed now that there was a reason, or an intended reason behind Florian's disappearance. But I have to also point out that he's a great storyteller. There's not a lot of historical facts, and there are a lot of historical facts, but there's not a lot of footnotes to go along or research behind it. So it's difficult to check up on his historical facts. And that's always annoyed me a little bit. I might be biased.
You mean like when
Because
he...
I studied
So
archaeology for a while, but...
You mean like when he gives Harry advice on his homework?
Yeah, Harry just writes it down, but there's no...
like he doesn't cite his
there's
sources.
no criticism on where the sources are from. There's no checking up on the sources or anything.
Yeah, we never hear about like magical citation styles or something like that.
Exactly.
It might be that Professor Binns
It's
doesn't
always
really
just
care.
Bathilda Backshock. Yes, but where does Bathilda get her sources from?
That's true.
She cannot be the only source.
Yeah.
I guess
She researches.
Yes,
she
But does she cite?
She's
does
old
she
enough
cite
that she's
her
like-
sources? And what style does she use?
Her source is her memory. She's like, well, when I was 10 years old in the 1600s, this is what I saw happen.
Yeah. The closest thing we get to historical sources are, this is so stupid, but it's on the back of the wizard card from the frog cards. What are those called?
Chocolate frogs.
The chocolate frog cards. Wait,
Yeah,
do they have footnotes?
No, they don't have footnotes, but those are the closest thing we have to historical sources, because they actually comment on like Pliny the Elder, who was a wizard, and so on and so forth, Merlin, who was a wizard. So those are historical people that we know of in the books, and Nicholas Flamel as well. These are mentioned on the back of the frog cards. So we know they exist, so they can be quoted.
But
okay. Like, Florian isn't trying to, like, give Harry an academic presentation.
No.
He's just telling him the history. Like, I do the same thing. Because I know far too much about, like, the British monarchy and, like, Tudor history and all that. Like, I will just, like, regale my niece with tales of, like, well, so Henry VIII had these 6 wives, and so he divorced the first one, and like, killed the second one. And, like, I'm just telling her the story because I know it.
I do
like,
the same
I'm not
with the
citing
Roman
my
emperors.
sources. Right. So, I'm sure if Harry asked Florian, if he was like, hey, Florian, like, what's your source? He'd be like, well, I read it in a book by Leander Delisle, the way I say. But, like, come on, Harry's not academically rigorous enough to ask for sources. He's just like, oh, that's what happened to burning witches? Okay, I'm gonna write that down and hint it in. Good stuff.
also we don't know quite how rigorous they want them to be in third year for that class, because honestly, I don't remember being asked to be particularly careful with citations in the earlier part of the school. I mean, later on, yes, but like at the start, not so much.
Yeah. Like, I think when I was that age, we were expected to use 3 sources that we just put at the end. But, like, we didn't have to, like, cite them or, like, say which facts we got. We're just like, I have looked up 3 things on the topic, and here is my paper.
Yeah, absolutely. We would just go rent a book and then write out whatever was in that book and make it sound like my own. But I was just repeating.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
where it all starts.
my experience was pre-internet, so take that with a grain of salt.
Well, so my experience was, like, when the internet was new. So, like, at first it was like, you have to have 3 sources and only one can be the internet. And then it became like, you have to have 3 sources and one should not be the internet. And then by the time we got to high school, they're just like, I do what you're going to do.
And now it's just, if it's AI, just make it evident.
oh my.
Oh,
Anyway, back to poor Florian.
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, poor Florian. So Florian's gone, and so is Ollivander. And so Ollivander, unlike Florian, does come back in Deathly Hallows. Like, that subplot does play out. And so, like, I guess I'm wondering, do we think Florian was gonna be part of the Malfoy Manor rescue?
I kind of assumed
because, like, that's always how I understood it.
Yeah. I kind of assumed that Harry would rescue both of them, or that Harry would like see, probably that he'd rescue both of them, but that like maybe he would get little glimpses into Voldemort asking Florian questions, like looking into Voldemort's mind, and like that might be a way he could get information throughout the book before the rescue scene, But
can you imagine having Ollivander and Florian in the same basement? They would just have a tea party every day.
yeah, they would actually enjoy it. Yeah.
And with Luna there, who'd be like,
oh, wow.
That's an interesting theory. However, I heard that they were actually heliopaths.
Yes.
Exactly.
And Florian would probably be too nice to, like, say anything against it. Be like, okay, sure.
Actually, I could see Florian having a really good time debating
Sure,
with her.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking it would go along. Okay, so if we look at the evidence, we know from this part of history that they actually, and in this warfare, we did see evidence of that could indicate. So you might be right, my dear.
Yeah.
That'd be
Or
cute.
if he is
Well, and
Italian,
then-
you might be right, my dear.
and then Dean Thomas comes in and, they're like, so it's time for our daily salon on history. We're going to be discussing, Herpo the Foul, today. And Dean Thomas is just like, what fresh hell did I get kidnapped into?
He's like, I thought I'd left Hogwarts. Like, why am I back in history and magic class?
Be like, I'm not even taking it at the newt level. I thought I was done. Oh, that's wholesome. I kind of like that now.
Yeah.
But the way Ollivander's disappearance is described is so intriguing and mysterious because they say no sign of a struggle. No one knows whether he left voluntarily or was kidnapped. And I was like, huh. And I remember before Deathly Hallows came out, like, that seemed like such a thing we should focus on, right? Because especially my impression of Ollivander in Sorcerer's Stone is that, sort of like in typical Ravenclaw fashion, he's very amoral. Like, not immoral, but amoral, where he just, like, isn't super fussed. Like, I'm thinking of the, think we can expect great things from you because Voldemort did great things. Terrible, yes, but great.
Very pure Ravenclaw sort of thing.
It really is. And so, like, this line in Half-Blood I think was, like, really something for the fans to chew on. Do you guys remember if you had any wild theories or if you thought Ollivander was going to be good or bad or anything like that?
I was too young. I don't remember.
When I was originally reading it, I thought it could have gone either way, just because, as you said, no sign of struggle, and he did seem a bit like, he could be persuaded to either side depending on if he gets to research interesting things. I don't remember spending too long thinking about it, but it did cross my mind that he might have joined the other side.
To me, I think Ollivander has always been that pinnacle example of you can be good bad, but you can also be bad good. So he's really neither. He can, as you said, he can be swayed on either side depending on his own motivations. It's for him. It's more. It's not neutral. It's just not either bad or good. It depends on. I almost said the greater good but to him, it depends on the motivation for what he's doing and why he's doing it. So he's not definitely good, but he's not definitely evil either.
I don't know.
No,
I don't see
like,
it that way.
I always thought he was sort of very neutral.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he doesn't want chaos, but he's not good or bad, I'd say.
I mean, I would say that we don't see him do any bad actions. We see him being, like, kind of in awe of some of the bad things, but it seems more like he is, like, curious. He's, like, intellectually... He finds it interesting. He finds it intellectually interesting. He's, like, kind of in awe of some of that power, but I don't see him doing anything bad. And, like, the sort of bad things he does of, like, giving the information to Voldemort, like, he was doing that under torture, and, like, that is what he stresses to Harry. He's like, I was being tortured, like, I'm, like, basically, like, I'm sorry I gave him this information. And I don't know, I think most of what we see is, either neutral or positive from him. I think it's more just his thoughts. Like, it's more intellectually that he entertains the bad things as interesting, but I don't see him doing bad actions.
Yeah,
I actually think
No,
I
for sure. I agree.
Yeah. I was gonna argue that we don't see him do any good either, but that's not true. And as you say, Sophia, that he's tortured into doing the bad things. So maybe, as Irvin said, he's neutral, but he's also intellectually inferior to good or bad.
I think the one really good thing we see him do is sending Luna a wand. That was so sweet. Like, you know, clearly he felt like she had really, like, helped him survive, and he clearly felt a lot of love and affection for her, and that he, like, even after he leaves, he makes sure to make a wand and send it over. I thought that was very sweet.
Or he just remembered that she didn't have a wand, and he just felt like it would be a correct thing to do for her to have a wand again.
But Dean Thomas didn't have a wand either, and, like, they say that, like, Dean is looking all sad and jealous, looking at Luna having her wand, and, like, Ollivander sent it specifically to Luna, so, I mean, to me that shows his affection for her, that he was like, I'm gonna prioritize getting her a wand.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
That falls under his motivation. That there's a personal motivator for sending Luna the wand and not just a good deed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd also say that the other good thing we see him do is tell Dumbledore about the Phoenix Wands the minute that Harry gets the other one.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But that's also so we intellectually pleasing that happened.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
But there's nothing wrong with, like, doing... Like, I mean, I feel like he's just... Yeah, I mean, he's just himself, which is, like, I don't know, he's just being himself.
Which is all any of us can aspire to be.
Exactly, and, like, yeah, he is not a Harry, he is himself, and that is a very intellectual kind of person who does things for Ravenclaw reasons, you know? Yeah.
I'm just saying that if Fudge or Voldemort set up something like Wizarding Manhattan Project, Ollivander would be there. Just for the intellectual part of it.
Yep. Yes, agreed.
I could see that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting, I mean, we do see that, like, it's not like he just goes to Voldemort and is like, okay, it's practical for me to be on your side now, so I'm gonna just give you all of this information and, like, be totally on your side. Like, he has to be tortured for it, he has to be imprisoned, like, so that suggests to me that he was not just, like, being a practical Ravenclaw and being like, oh, I guess you kidnapped me, so I guess this is my side now, I'm gonna, you know, like, I guess this is what I should do now, is be on the side of the Death Eaters.
I feel like we need a psychologist for this.
Look at me.
Well, yeah, but, like, especially in Half-Blood Prince, when we didn't know how it was going to turn out in Deathly Hallows, like, I feel like it was very much an open question of, like, you know, how strong his allegiance to Dumbledore was.
Yes.
And also, like, there were so many cool theories swirling around Ollivander, and so the fact that, like, you know, there was all this mystery about his disappearance just fed into that, because, one of the really popular theories is that Ollivander's was an anagram that would turn out to be very important, because Ollivander's is an anagram for either Ronald lives or Ronald's evil.
Okay.
So,
well, he did live, so
so we were right.
I guess you can say you were right. Yeah.
And the other one. So I was convinced, like 200% convinced, that there was a Horcrux in Ollivander's shop. Like, I thought that the wand on a faded cushion in the window that we see in Sorcerer's Stone, like, I was absolutely certain that was Ravenclaw's wand and that it was gonna be a Horcrux. Wow. And so, yeah. So Ollivander's mysterious disappearance, I was like, well, that makes sense. That ties into the whole Ravenclaw's Horcrux thing in his shop, so...
No, he was just trying out this whole, having a nice window in case he can sell more wands. That was just staging.
Ev, that seems outlandish, to be honest.
Well, yeah, he tried, you know. He didn't succeed, but he tried. You know, marketing isn't his strong suit. No, although he does seem to be doing okay because everybody thinks he's the best one.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, but, okay, let's talk about that, because the economics of wand making. I have so many thoughts. I am like ready to write my essay on the wand market in the UK. Because like when Ollivander disappears, and Harry's like, what'll people do for wands? And I forget who, I think it, Bill or Lupin is like, they'll make do with other wand makers. And I was like, whoa. What? Huh? How? Like, I have so many follow-up questions about this. So, first of all, like, this is why monopolies are bad, right? Because when, like, the one wand maker disappears, suddenly everyone is SOL. But what is it like to be a B-tier wand maker, in the UK? Like, these other wand makers, I was like, who are they? And more importantly, how do they put food on the table? Because, like, your entire market of customers is somewhere between 50 and 300, like, wands per year. Like, depending on the size of Hogwarts and blah, 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 Joe is bad at math. But if that's your entire, like, addressable market for your products, and then apparently there's, like, one guy who is the guy for wands, and, like, probably sells, like, 80 to 90% of them. So, these other wand makers are selling, like, half a dozen wands a year. Like, at best. So, like...
So, my question is this the only time a person might want to get a wand when they're starting in Hogwarts? Are there specialized wands that somebody might want to get as an adult later? Like, I don't know, like when Charlie goes to Romania and he needs to work with dragons, would there be a case for him getting like a specialized extra good for magical creatures wrangling wand, and they would be a wand maker specializing in something like that? Obviously, like there's no evidence in text for any of this, but in principle, could the B tier people just be specializing in something else?
I think it's more
Some of the
likely.
time.
But also, to me, depends. Oh, sorry, Sophia, go ahead.
I think to me it's more likely that people just either break or lose their wands. Because, like, I am honestly shocked. Like, given all of the crazy stuff that Harry does, like, I'm shocked it takes him to the 7th book to break his wand. Like, you know, like, it's a pretty fragile thing. So I think that...
It's not that fragile. I'm sure there's, like, anti-breaking charms on it, so, like...
Okay, but, like, clearly they don't work that well, because both Ron and Harry break their wands. Like, I don't know, like, it's not, like, a perfect anti-breaking breaking spell.
No, but, like, you know, it
sure,
helps.
Maybe, but, like, I think probably it's more likely that, yes, in later years, it's, like, because your wand is broken, or, like, I think probably Charlie got rid of his because, like, the unicorn hair was, like, coming out the tip, and he was like, like, I'm an adult now, I can get my own wand. So, yeah, I would see it more as, like, I think because the relationship between the wizard and the wand is, like, so special, and it, like, grows as you get older, like, I don't think that you would get a new specialized wand.
But that was my question, because I really, really enjoy thinking that you could get a specialized wand for, like, dragon wrangling or whatever. Botanical wand, I don't know. So that depends. What we know of wand lore is that the wand chooses the wizard. We also know that you have to win a wand's alliance. And Harry does say that Draco's wand works just as well as his own did.
He says just as well
so
as Hermione's
does that mean...
did.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's what he says. You're right. Yeah, sorry. Yes. But the Elder Wand works just as well. He just wants his own wand back. So my question is, do we consider the relationship with the wand as a soulmate? Is that a once in a lifetime thing you will get, or can you get that with another wand that chooses you?
I think it's like with people. I mean, you people have soulmates, but also you can have more than one close relationship in your entire lifespan. They are going to be different, but they can both be equally special, and more than one wand could choose you. Yep. In the same way that more than one person can potentially choose you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree
Well,
with that.
Irvin, to answer your original question, I would guess that it's not their full-time job. I'm guessing that there are some, like, hobbyists who, like, this is their kind of passion project, is, like, learning about wand lore and making wands, and that they sell them for cheaper, so for people like, clearly, the Weasleys, who, like, couldn't afford a new wand for Ron. Whoa.
A new Ron for Ron. Yeah.
Like, another option might be to go to one of these lesser makers and get a cheaper wand, but, like, it might not be work as well or something like that. So I think that probably they're, like, hobbyists and, you know, they're not planning to make
Yeah.
But would-
much money off of it.
But then,
That was my interpretation as well, that it's like, yeah, they have to just have it as a hobby and not as a livelihood.
but, we assume, we just agreed that wands choose their soulmate. So, if you go through every Ollivander wand and he's like, no, there must be one, and you just don't find it, then you go visit one of the smaller ones and you find your soulmate in there. That could potentially happen.
It could. I don't think it happens much. Because,
I would guess that...
you know, like Ev said, assuming there's not, like, just the one wand for a wizard, yeah, I think your odds are good of finding something at all.
And, like, Ollivander, the way he describes it is not, like, soulmate. He describes it as, like, there's an initial attraction of the wand sort of saying, ooh, I would like this relationship with the wizard, and then, like, a mutual quest for knowledge and, like, you know, like, you guys are learning from each other, the wizard from the wand from the wizard. So I think it's more like one of the wands in the shop is like, ooh, like, this wizard seems cool, I like this wizard, rather than, like, this is the one and only wizard for me.
That makes sense. Brilliant.
Well, also,
like
could Ollivander be overplaying somewhat how important the one chooses the wizard is? Not that it's not a thing, but that's more kind of like his specialty, and it's less of a big deal?
I don't think
it's
so.
It's not as much of a big deal as he says?
Ev, you think very highly of Ollivander's marketing.
Right, you think
so?
Seriously. I think this is his passion, this is what he wants to talk about with people, he's not gonna lie about it.
But
it's not necessarily a lie, is it?
Yeah, I'm just saying in the sense of that if you go to Madame Malkin's, she would be like, oh, the robes. You know, each person, there is a particular robe color and style that was just perfect for them. And you kind of go, well...
And she would be correct.
And you'd be like, yeah, sure, but also you could just put on any robes and you'd be just fine.
but that's clearly not
that is
true.
Untrue.
Because...
Okay, when you are shopping...
Sorry.
When you are shopping for clothes, like, you know, it's like wedding gowns or whatever. Like, when you see the one, you know it's the one.
Yeah, you can, the wand chooses the wizard. But we also see Ollivander create wands for people, so he must have an initial idea or a skill set to read people and see, okay, so these ingredients would suit you, and this type of wood plays well into your general temperament or whatever. So he can create wands on commission, really.
Yeah.
But that wand could, in principle, still reject the wizard.
Well, that would be annoying.
That would be very annoying because he already sold it. He made it on commission.
It's like if you ordered a portrait of yourself to be painted, a magical portrait, and then finally it's finished and you spent all this time sitting for the portrait and training it, and then you get the portrait at the end and the portrait is like, nah, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to anyone. Forget it.
Wanders out.
Yeah, just
I
wanders off and that's it.
Well,
if you hated yourself, I could see that happening.
Well, torturers can't be choosers, so if Voldemort is going to torture Ollivander and keep him in a dungeon to make wands for his Death Eaters, then I think he has to deal with whatever outcomes come his way. Anyway, I do want to point out that we're an hour in and we haven't gotten past, like, the first 2 pages of the chapter.
Yep, exactly. This is going to be that kind of an episode,
perhaps
y'all.
we would like to move on.
So now, who wants to discuss that now that Harry is the Quidditch captain, he gets to use the special prefect bathroom? Because clearly, this is the most important thing as well.
Exactly. Because Harry's made Quidditch captain, and Hermione's first thing is like, you get to use our bathroom now.
I mean, with that bathtub, that would be the highlight for me.
To be
But
honest,
it's just
I
the most
understand
stupid
that.
comment ever. Because she could just have given him the what is it called?
Password?
Yes,
the
thank you.
password.
She could have just given him the password and then
But that would be unlawful.
yes, but Ron could have.
That would be breaking the rules.
I know. But Ron could have.
Yeah, I'm
Just-
surprised
it's
Ron
a
didn't do
bathroom.
it. Maybe Ron just didn't use the
Exactly.
prefect's bathroom because he doesn't wash or something.
Well, okay. Here's my question. Do we think Harry ever used the prefix bathroom? Or if he was like, I'm gonna use one where there's less moaning
Yes,
murder.
I
I
think
think
that
yes.
traumatized him
Mhm.
thoroughly, and
Mhm.
no, I don't think he used it again.
Yeah. Because unlike so many fanfics that we read, when he uses the bathroom, a naked Cedric won't be waiting there for him. So, like, what's even the
Exactly.
point?
Like Cedric's
Yes.
ghost or actual naked Cedric?
No actual naked Cedric. That's why he won't be there, because he's dead.
I'm not sure if that's worse or better.
But no, like, the line that gives you equal status with prefects, I assumed that this was, Jo, like, answering a reader question. She's like, okay, readers, James Potter was head boy, even though Lupin was a prefect, because James was the Quidditch captain, and therefore he had equal status to prefects and could become head boy, so I'm gonna need you to get all the way off my back.
That's fair.
That's how I
Although
read
to me
the
that
line.
doesn't make any sense, but we don't need to get into that. It's just very different skills involved.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I don't think it's. I don't think it's about
I-
skills. I think it's more about the standing in the student community.
that's very British to me.
Yeah.
I mean, American people are very into school sports, probably more so than anywhere else in the world. So, I'm not
Yes,
sure if
but like
that's-
something
Yeah.
How
about the like
British that is.
status thing. I don't know. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense that, like, you know, Harry would become Quidditch captain. Like, I know we all anticipated it ahead of the 6th book, because, like, the only other person who's been on the team for more than, like, 10 minutes is Katie Bell. And so, if A, you make Harry captain, you get him for another year, theoretically at least, and also, like, you want the kid to have leadership experience, like, considering. So yeah, I think kind of a no-brainer to make him captain. But oh my god, Ron is so insecure. Like, the minute Harry becomes captain, Ron is like, oh, Harry, this is so cool. You're my captain. If you let me back on the team, I suppose. Ha. And, like, I am cringing every time I read this. I was like, oh my god, that's so awkward. He's so awkward.
I mean, yeah, it is awkward.
I mean, it is an
Yeah.
uncomfortable position to be for Harry as well, because he potentially will have to turn down his best friend in the interests of the team, and that's a difficult thing to
Yeah.
navigate.
Yup. But, so moving on to, more nonsense from Ron. At one point, Mrs. Weasley's all, like, freaking out about security and all that, and Ron is like, Mum, do you honestly think you know who's going to be hiding behind a bookshelf in Flourish and Blots? Sniggered Ron. Yes. Literally, yes, it's happened before. Like, 4 years ago, a teenage you-know-who was hiding in Flourish and Blots in Lucius Malfoy's
That's so
hands.
funny.
Where Lucius was waiting for a dramatic entrance. I was like, Ron, this has literally happened before.
In a very different way, but yes. That's funny.
But it feels so Ron to say it like that, because it's just trying to make a joke about something that is definitely not funny, because it is serious, and it did happen.
Yup. Okay. So, this is ludicrous. Bill gets Harry's gold out of his vault for him.
Mhm.
Yes.
And every time I read this, I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, he works there,
Like-
so they know who he is, so it's fine.
So, any employee at Gringotts can just be like, let me get this guy's gold for him, so he doesn't have to wait in line. I'll give it to him, trust me.
Well,
Yeah.
they've done it for a cat before that had a key, so I think their own employee, who is a curse breaker, working for Gringotts is okay, I think.
I felt
And
like the
so
cat was walking with a sort of not
yeah,
a
with like an
paycheck.
order form.
Yeah,
and
exactly,
the
an
key and
order form.
everything.
where they would just withdraw money from this account. Perfect, done deal.
Yeah.
But in this,
Yeah.
Bill taking out money for Harry is just ridiculous, because in general there's so many things in regard to Harry's security and decisions around him being made.
And also,
it doesn't make sense.
This is after, quote unquote, the goblins have tightened security so much.
Yes.
I was like, I'm sorry, after they've tightened securities, you just waltz into a person's vault and get gold.
Well, they've
I mean-
tightened
Yes.
the security externally, not internally for their own employees, which seems kind of
Yeah,
on brand,
apparently.
really.
Are we assuming that Harry gave him the
Yes.
key?
But how
No.
could he?
Harry didn't know about it. Like, Harry is surprised to hear about
That's
it.
But
true.
also Harry,
He's just like, oh, thanks, cool.
yes,
Yeah,
but also
that's
Harry
weird.
is a minor, so to withdraw money from his account, he would probably have need a legal guardian to.
No,
Vouch
he's done
for
it
him.
before.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he just needs the
Yeah.
key.
Okay, yeah,
I
you're
don't
right. He
think
just
goblins
needs the
care.
key, but he doesn't
Yeah.
have the key. So it would be Harry or a legal guardian that would allow Bill to do this. And who would that guardian be?
Or, you know what Bill could have done? He could have just, like, summoned Harry's key, like, been like, I'm leaving early in the morning, summon Harry's key, go into Gringotts. And it's just like, alright!
Unless Harry left the key with Molly for safekeeping, because she does get him his books before, like in previous books.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what
There
I
have
mean.
been other times that she has gotten stuff for him. Yeah.
So she
I don't
might
know.
just have the key,
Or like
and
a
she
copy
has
of
given
the key.
to Bill.
Maybe he got her a copy of the key or something. Or, I mean, yeah. I don't know.
Utter nonsense. We also get a really good bit of like Harry Ginny build up. Like, I know we say a lot that like the Harry Ginny thing comes a bit out of nowhere in Half-Blood Prince, but like there are these like little moments that show what a good match they are. Because when Fleur is being like, you know, overly romantic with Bill, she's like stroking his nose or whatever. Ginny mimed vomiting into her cereal behind Fleur. Harry choked over his
It's
cornflakes.
cute.
And like this is a deliberate contrast to Cho. Like Cho is into like the cutesy, romantic, like, you know, frilly Madame Puttyfoot's like PDA like side of things. And Ginny is like much more on Harry's level, where she's like not overly into like the sentimental, like froofy romance of it
Yeah.
all.
But they also spent, and they comment on this, spent the entire summer holiday together. They play Quidditch together. Ginny is always there. So when
Mhm.
she's away, he really misses her presence.
Yeah.
And that's when he starts
Yeah.
realizing that she is the one for him. I'm just surprised that you said that you think you've discussed it comes out of nowhere. I've never seen
I mean,
that.
I have heard that from people where like, you know, sort of, you know, nothing, and then in Half-Blood Prince suddenly there's like a monster in Harry's chest.
Yeah, no, I've heard that argument before too. But I think that
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
I think that there are, you know, clues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought it held much water. We get more of Harry's, like, what would Dumbledore do attitude. Like, at this point, Harry is, like, you know, all in on Dumbledore. Like, because the subject of his security, at Diagon Alley comes up. And, you know, everyone's like, oh, well, you know, like, the Ministry's providing security, and Harry's just like, he had his invisibility cloak, and felt that if that was good enough for Dumbledore, it ought to be good enough for the Ministry. And, like, I read this and I was like, oh, Scrimgeour never stood a chance of convincing Harry.
Could we all get WWDDD bracelets?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That would be brilliant.
Yes, we should. Cheerfully, yes, it'll be part of our, you know, Three Broomsticks merchandise line. We can get Ollivander to do the marketing.
Oh. We should keep a list.
Yeah. But we also see that, like, Dumbledore's status, you know, in everyone's esteem is climbing these days, because he can just override the Ministry again, because when Hagrid shows up, he's like, the Ministry wanted to send a bunch of Aurors, but Dumbledore said I'd do. And I was like, well, and I guess if Dumbledore said so, that's what we're doing? Okay. But that actually brings me to my question about the drivers that the Ministry provided. Because when the drivers drop off the Weasleys at Diagon Alley, they're like, oh, we're gonna wait for you. Do you know how long you'll be? And Miss Weasley's like, a couple hours. And I was like, wait. They're waiting for them? Like, they're just sitting in their cars for half a day waiting for the Weasleys?
They probably
Like,
brought a book or something. They'll be fine.
Don't they have magic? Like, can't they just, like, go to the Leaky Cauldron, like, grab a pint, and then be like, okay, we'll be there in 10 minutes when you say so, 'cause, magic?
Yeah, don't grab a pint and drive, but yeah, just sitting around doing nothing. Couldn't they be driving for other people until they were needed back? I mean...
Well, they're not a taxi service, so they can just hang out.
I mean, no, apparently they're a chauffeur service.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, you bring a book,
my-
Daily Prophet, have a snack.
Just relax.
Not a big deal.
My theory was actually that that the drivers are actually security. That the Ministry's like, oh yeah, we won't provide any security. Hagrid's just fine. And they'll be like, all right, you should drive them and you should keep an eye on them because yeah, we're not entrusting the Chosen One's security to Rubius Hagrid.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's actually a fun theory.
Yeah, I could see it, potentially.
Yeah. All right,
Like,
Dumbledore,
I just picture,
you
like-
have your eccentrics. We will just do this.
Right, like, you know, the like, Weasleys, like, disappear to the Leaky Cauldron, and it's like the drivers, like, take off their costumes, like, put on their badass sunglasses, like,
the Daily
drink a bit of
Prophet with
apology, so they're like,
holes in
let's
it.
go. Exactly.
Yeah, that works. I think that works.
Yeah.
That's my new theory. That's my new headcanon. That's definitely what's happening.
Yep. I love it. But okay, we have gotten to Diagon Alley.
Woo, we made it! Woo!
So we get to Diagon Alley, and there are all these shabby-looking stalls peddling, I mean, basically snake oil to, like, people who are freaked out about Voldemort. And, like, it's so gross that people do this, and it's also so believable
It
that
so
people
happens,
would do
and it
this.
happens at Hogwarts during every exam season.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it's so believable.
Yeah. I do always crack up at Mrs. Weasley's line, like, don't go arresting anyone now, dear, we're in a hurry. And it's like, didn't she say that Arthur has 10 people reporting to him? Like, is there no one on the clock at this point whom Arthur can be like, hey, like, you should pop over to Diagon Alley?
I don't think he knows how to delegate because he was working practically by himself for so long. So.
Fair enough.
I think
That's a good point.
also, like, you know, she doesn't want him to get distracted and go off sending owls or whatever. She's like, stay with us, keep on task.
Maybe we need Molly for our recording sessions, you know, to keep it efficient.
I mean, I'm trying to be Molly, but Irvin won't let me.
I think you're doing well, Sophia.
you. You're trying. We haven't even gotten to the Malkins yet.
Not for lack of trying on my part.
Now, don't go arresting anyone there, Irvin, okay? Sophia
Why,
has
if
places
I were
to
on
be.
duty? Okay, fine. Enter Draco Malfoy.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. So this is actually the first time we, like, see him in Half-Blood Prince. And I love the fact that basically his opening line in this whole book is not a child, mother. Because it's such a fantastic job of just establishing his whole arc, for Half-Blood Prince right off the bat. Like, this is really the book where Draco has to grow up. He's sort of forced to, but he still has so very much growing up left to do. And just, like, the fact that, like, literally from the word go, Joe is like, here is what we're doing, people. I think it's so masterfully done.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
And I also think it's a really, good parallel to Harry in the prior book, where Draco is just chafing against Narcissa's mollycoddling, just like Harry did against Mrs. Weasley, which is why the chapter actually ends on the same note. Like, the last thing we see Draco say in this chapter is, not a word to anyone, and that includes my mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
They're
there
proper
is
teenagers now.
something about that line of saying, like, not a child, there is something about, like, there is something very childish about, like, being like, I'm not a child, like, I'm an adult now. And that really shows, like, Draco throughout the first, like, part of the book, where he's just being like, I'm not a child, I have this mission, ha ha ha. And then, like, throughout the book being like, oh wait, I actually am a child, and I don't want to be part of it.
Yeah, then reality just hits hard, right.
Well, I'm so glad you bring that up, because we actually have a visual representation of that. Draco looking into the mirror, at himself. So, there are 2 scenes in Half-Blood Prince where Draco is looking at himself in the mirror. And I think, like, they mirror each other. Precisely to illustrate, your point, Sophia. Because in this chapter, he strode to the mirror and examined himself. And, then he sees Harry, Ron, and Hermione reflected over his shoulder. And, this is him being like, oh my god, look at me, I'm hot shit, like, look at that badass Death Eater in the mirror right there. Then, in the spring, in chapter 24, when he's in the bathroom, we see, Malfoy gasped and gulped, and then with a great shudder, looked up into the cracked mirror, and once again sees Harry staring at him over his shoulder. So, like, both times it's like Harry's over his shoulder, he's like, ah! But yeah, I think that is literally, like, him coming to that realization, and so after 8 months, he's once again looking in the mirror, and he's realizing that, he's not, like, that badass little Death Eater, like, this mission is a chance for death, not for glory, which is why he's actually crying in that second scene.
And what he does right after seeing Harry in the mirror in both scenes, I think, is interesting. Like, in the first one, he, like, says, like, if you're wondering what the smell is, like, a mudblood just walked in, which is very much just, like, parroting his parents' belief, parroting, like, Voldemort's belief, like, sort of saying, like, I am the same person I've always been. And I think in that second scene, he sees Harry, and he responds with violence, but it's more out of, like, the fact that Harry is, for the first time, seeing him as being different from that. Like, for the first time, Harry sees Draco and is like, oh my god, this is not just this, like, pampered little prince who has all of these dark beliefs and stuff. This is, like, a kid who's terrified and has gotten in way over his head. And that Draco sees Harry seeing him differently. And sees that and gets scared by that. This gets scared by, like, and ashamed of the fact that he's not the person who he thought he was, and is, like, attacking Harry because he's ashamed that Harry has seen, like, who he really is in that mirror.
Yeah, that's incredible. I also think that's driven home by the fact that the second mirror that he's looking into, like, before the attack, it's a cracked mirror. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I mean, like, metaphors don't get more on the nose than that. Like, it basically shows that the way Draco has seen himself his whole life is shattered, after this mission, and after he realizes that, like, he is not, in fact, like, a killer. Like, I think this is a prelude to the Lightning Struck Tower, where he's like, oh, I'm not going to kill Dumbledore, like, I am not, who I thought I was going to be. I'm not this perfect Death Eater who can just kill people willy-nilly and doesn't feel anything. So, yeah. Guys, Half-Blood Prince is so good.
It is brilliant.
I'm so impressed with Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah. And I just want you to say so much more on this whole Draco realizing Draco's self-image changing, because I know you have so much more to say on that topic. But I know we have a limit of time.
As, what is it? Is it Lockhart who says, like, for more information, see my published works?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So that's what Irvin can say.
For more information, see my published works. Malfoy, coming to a bookstore near you in October. Yeah. But yeah, so we can stick a pin in that and go back to Draco in this scene with Narcissa. So, like, the fact that he's arguing with Narcissa in public about, like, the I'm not a child thing, like, I I think it is very much a, like, sore subject, and probably a recurring one, because I feel like the Malfoys sort out all their shit behind closed doors. And so the fact that they are, like, going over this in public in front of other people, like, means that, like, no, this is not, like, a one-time disagreement they're having. This is, like, a serious point of contention.
I disagree. I don't think the Malfoys do sort out their shit behind closed doors, because I think this really mirrors the second book in Borgin and Burke's, when, like, Lucius Malfoy, like, basically says to Borgin, like, oh, you know, my son is worth nothing more than will be worth nothing more than a thief or a plunderer unless his grades pick up. Like, that's pretty, like, he's saying this to someone who he doesn't even respect. And, like, to shame Draco in public. So I don't think that that's true. And, like, they even before they're talking to Borgin, like, Draco is having this whole, you know, like, Lucius is getting annoyed with Draco for his complaining and whatever. So I don't think that's true. I think that they are perfectly willing to have these sorts of conversations in public.
I disagree. I think that when we see them having these conversations in public, that it is the exception, not the rule. Because, yeah, generally the only time we see that is in this scene, and when Lucius is basically trying to tell Draco off in front of Borgin.
But these are, like, the only two scenes that we see Draco and Lucius, like, in that much detail, and and Narcissa and Draco in that much detail. Like, we don't have other scenes where we see that. So the fact that these are, like, the two scenes that we see, and that is what they're doing, does not make it seem like the exception.
I mean, I think so, because we see a lot of scenes of Draco with Crabbe and Goyle, and it's always a united front. Like, we never see disagreements playing out in front of people.
Draco with Crabbe and Goyle? Crabbe and Goyle don't speak. Yeah. Crabbe and Goyle literally don't say anything until the 7th book. Like, that's the whole, like, conceit of them, is that they don't say anything.
Touché. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I never saw the Chamber of Secrets one as much of an issue, because it's Lucius telling Draco not to talk about this stuff in public.
No, the only thing he's talking
I know
about
that they
is
do.
Harry Potter, like, him complaining about Harry Potter in public because of most people thinking Harry is great. But, like, Lucius is perfectly happy to, like, bring out this dirty laundry of, like, Draco not getting good enough grades to this random shopkeeper.
He might be doing it on purpose, though, to sort of motivate Draco to do better.
Exactly.
Well, not motivate, shame him into doing better. So it's less that it comes out in front of other people, it's more that he's doing it on purpose.
Yeah, but either way, that does not say to me that, like, the family's, like, main mode of acting is that they, like, keep all of their disagreement or all of their dirty laundry, like, for the home and never and like always show a united front. Like, you know, the fact that Lucius is willing to, you know, say this in public, I don't know. I
mean, I know you and I have disagreed about Lucius in Borgin and Burke's in general, and sort of how acceptable his behavior is. But okay. So, actually, you mentioned, earlier about Draco's, comment when he sees the trio about, like, you know, if you're wondering what that smell is, Mother, a mudblood just walked in. So, I actually found this an interesting comment, and something to dive into, because this is a Narcissa Malfoy trademark. The only time we see this whole, like, you know, mudbloods literally stink, calumny, is basically in this context. We see, Draco make this comment to Narcissa, here, where he never ever does before or after. And for me, it reminded me of Narcissa's first scene in Goblet of Fire. The one where, she's described as looking like she has a nasty smell under her nose. And so I thought that in Goblet of Fire, because that's never a descriptor we see applied to Narcissa again, Like, she doesn't seem to smell bad things, in other scenes she's in. So I thought that was actually, in Goblet of Fire, Narcissa showing her contempt for Hermione. And that, like, sort of, one of Narcissa's signature things is that, like, mudbloods smell bad, which is why only when Draco has his mother to play off of does he make that comment.
Interesting. I'd never thought about that before. Yeah.
Yeah, to me it makes so much sense because you can just see the look on her face from that description, and it is the perfect example of what you do with your face when you feel contempt.
Yeah.
So
also, Sophia, I'm pretty sure that I started coming up with this theory when we were together at a writing retreat. Like, I remember sitting there being like, hey, Sophia, why do you think Narcissa had that bad smell? And then it, like, cut to, like, a week later of typing. I was like, I've got it!
The only thing that I would argue perhaps against that, but I do think it's an interesting theory, is that, like, when Harry, like, makes that jibe at Draco where he's like, does your mom always look like that? Or, like, was it only because you're with her? And, like, Draco's response is not like, oh, no, it was only because, like, Hermione is, like, a filthy mudblood, whatever. That he gets all, like, he flushes and gets all upset. It's like, don't you, like, talk about my mom that way. But it's also, I guess, possible because I don't remember what Harry's exact phrasing is. Does he mention the sort of, like, the fact that she looks like she's smelling something bad? He does. Okay,
yeah. He's like, hey, your mother Malfoy, does she always look like she's got dung under her nose, or is it because you were with her? But that's the first time Harry ever speaks against Draco's mother. So I feel like Draco's not going to offer a defense. He's just like, watch your mouth.
And that's a general theme throughout the books, that whenever your mom is insulted, you lose your head.
Yeah.
Because we actually see this, like, right in this scene, where, like, the minute Harry starts sassing Narcissa, Draco, like, loses his cool, and he, like, makes angry movements towards Draco and everything. Which I actually also thought was a bit of foreshadowing for the next two books and his arc, where basically, like, Draco's about to spend the next 2 years of his life trying to protect his parents.
Mm.
So, because, like, in the previous times when, when Draco's parents were insulted, Draco, like, is like, don't you insult them, like, don't you dare, and all that. Here, he actually, like, starts, like, moving at them. He's, like, ready to go. He's ready to take action to protect his parents.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But the other interesting thing about sort of Narcissa's entrance here, is Harry is now as tall as she is. That's specifically pointed out in the narration. And I thought that this was sort of a subconscious cue for us that Harry has grown up, that he's sort of on a level playing field with, like, the Death Eaters he's going up against. Like, is that how you guys read it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I could see that. And it's interesting because I was just reading Deathly Hallows, and Bellatrix is taller. Like, when Hermione turns into Bellatrix, like, Bellatrix is even taller than Harry. So it's interesting, like, these two sisters with, like, Narcissa, he's able to, like, face her head on and, like, confront her in this space. But, like, Bellatrix is still, like, the big, scary,
Mm.
Yeah. Well, which I think is also why, like, Voldemort and Dumbledore are both described as being very tall. I think it's sort of a subconscious cue that sort of the more, like, powerful, and formidable an adversary you are, like, sort of the taller you'll appear to Harry.
Yeah, exactly. And when Dumbledore's dead, he seems smaller, as I recall.
Right.
Smaller in death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. So the use of size is very... I think she does that on purpose throughout. So I agree.
Oh, yeah.
Completely.
Like, I feel like sort of at this point, just about everything Jo did was on purpose in Half-Blood Prince. Just because, like, it's such a meticulous book, and, like, there's such an economy of words that, like, I think she, like, thought through literally everything she put in here.
But also, I think the size thing is, it generally applies, because depending on somebody's, confidence and bearing, somebody could look taller than they actually are just because of how they carry themselves. And in some situations they can even appear taller, and then in others they could appear shorter. So I don't know if Voldemort and Dumbledore are necessarily giants. They
Yeah.
might be only slightly taller than average, but I think Dumbledore walking into the room, commanding the room, I mean, he probably just appears taller than everybody else there, regardless of what his actual literal height is.
Yeah. If I may quote Kristen Chenoweth, this is one of my favorite quotes of hers. I'm very tall for my height.
Nice.
Yep.
So, I picture Dumbledore, Voldemort, and Bellatrix all being very tall for their height.
And I can see they're all in one room and they're all just trying to out-height themselves. I'm taller than you. I'm taller than you.
Yeah. So Narcissa. So Harry's as tall as her. And I feel like this scene tells us so much about Narcissa and so much about sort of how much Draco gets from her. Specifically, we know Draco is amazing at compartmentalizing. It's a very big part of his character in the last two books. And here we see where he gets that from, because the last time we saw Narcissa in Half-Blood Prince, like, she was hysterical. Like, wine glasses skidding, like, tears, like, wails of despair, the works. And now she's the picture of poise, like, smoothly arrogant face, threatening teenagers as one does, like, sort of, you'd never know she was worried, especially sort of in contrast to, like, all the shoppers and the Weasleys who, like, are looking visibly, like, worried and anxious right now.
Yeah. Well, she did now get, Snape to make the unbreakable vow, so I think she's probably feeling a bit more calm now.
Oh, she's like,
No,
it'll
I'm
be
not saying that
fine.
she's, like, totally chilling, but I'm just saying that she's not at quite the level of distress that she was in before that point.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but still, it takes a skill set to just pull yourself together from the worry. I mean, she did do something, but it just, or at least that's the way it is for me. It doesn't leave me just because now I acted on it. It takes a while to sort of loosen my body back up after a long period of worry.
Yeah. And
she just cuts to a new mood, really.
And also, I think it shows, like, her public persona versus her private persona, and that she, like, there is a way that she's willing to act in front of the people in her inner circle that she's, like, never gonna show to the public.
Mm-hmm.
Was she perhaps also
Agreed.
putting it on a little bit for Snape's benefit? Because he strikes me as a guy who's very uncomfortable with emotions, especially female ones. Not that
you think she was playing him with her emotions?
I mean, not that she's not worried. I mean, she is, but the way she chose to express them at that moment could have been, slightly calculated.
Didn't think of that.
I disagree. But also, if we start on Spinner's End, we
That's
will
true.
be.
So
That's
let's
true. That
move
probably
on.
belongs to Spinner's End chapter. So we'll another
Yeah.
pin. Lots of pins.
Yeah.
Pins are
So
everywhere.
many pins. Just like the pins in Draco's robe glittering around him.
Indeed, and he keeps complaining that he's getting stabbed by pins.
He does. But one more thing about Narcissa. She is such a master of ominous foreshadowing. Like, I mean, she literally says, I see that being Dumbledore's favorite has given you a false sense of security, Harry Potter, but Dumbledore won't always be there to protect you. Dun dun dun! Insert a clap of thunder here.
And the thing is, like, I could imagine
Like-
Draco in the background being like, Mom! Like, why are you giving away my secret plan? Like...
Okay. Sophia, have you ever seen Makani's fan art in
No.
Project HBP? Okay, so Makani was this amazing fan artist back in the day. I think her real name is Heather Campbell, who basically like was trying to draw Half-Blood Prince. She got a couple chapters in, but there's this amazing picture that I put at the bottom of our doc, where it's like just Narcissa, like, with her hands together, being like, and then Draco is behind her, being like, "Mom, stop foreshadowing." Embarrassing.
That's so funny. But I could really, like, if I was Draco in that moment, I'd be like, Mom, like, it's supposed to be a secret. Like, stop saying those things. Like,
Oh, it's so funny. I actually thought this was a fantastic echo to Lucius, in the prior book, because, like, she really echoes the language here, because in Order of the Phoenix, after the Ministry trial, Lucius says basically the same thing. She's like, really, just because you're Dumbledore's favorite boy, you must not expect the same indulgence from the rest of us. So yeah, the Malfoy parents just keep, like, harping on about how, like, you know, you're Dumbledore's favorite, but that won't get you everywhere.
Yeah, but they also live by the rules of hybris. Don't get too close to the sun or you will get burned. But we can because we have the money.
Right, until they get
burned. Yeah, exactly. But they will get burned, so they get their own hybris. But I really have to applaud Rowling's ability to write in clues and foreshadowing. She writes them in brilliantly throughout this book, and that's why I keep returning to it as my favorite. Because there's nothing like a good plot twist that you can actually figure out by reading the book. And she does this. She plants clues in plain sight for the reader, and she does it so masterfully that I didn't necessarily catch on until it's all laid out and written that it all makes sense. So, for example, the whole where Madame Malkin says to Draco, I think this left sleeve should come up a little bit more, and Draco just loses it. And his reaction is just so over the top. And when I read it the first time, and when I consciously read it again and again in my teenage years, I always thought that's a wild reaction. But he's riled right now. His emotions are running high, so of course he reacts. But it doesn't take until the next chapter where Harry is like, you know what? He could have the dark mark on his left arm. It all makes sense. And we can just follow it because there's all these little instances that's just written out in plain sight. Like later in this chapter where Draco moves out of sight and shows something to Borgins, and he mentions Fenrir Greyback, and it's just it's all there, and so we can follow the reasoning, and that's brilliant. A good plot, and a good twist only makes sense to me when you can actually follow what happens throughout. And if you can figure it out yourself, not just, oh, by the way, let's make a twist that you never saw coming. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think Rowling does this masterfully.
Yeah, I mean, especially in this chapter, she is just firing on absolutely all cylinders.
Absolutely.
Because, yeah, like, she foreshadows this book. You know, we get Draco's Dark Mark. We get Fenrir Greyback. We get the Vanishing Cabinet. We get, you know, that Dumbledore won't always be around. But we also get, for the next book, Regulus Black, Ollivander, and Florian Fortescue. And that is actually the 7 ingredients of today's special. Is the 7 insane bits of foreshadowing that Joe put in this chapter for the future of this book and for Deathly Hallows.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. No, but you're so right. Like, when I was reading this the first time, I was like, I mean, yeah, of course he's gonna, like, be a baby and be like, oh, watch where you're sticking that. Like, I never thought any more of it until Harry pointed it out, and I was like, huh. And now, of course, we don't know whether it's the Dark Mark or a werewolf bite. But either way, brilliant foreshadowing. And, like, you gotta feel bad for Madame Malkin, who just, like, had all this nonsense blowing up in her store all of a sudden.
Yeah, the whole thing was very uncomfortable.
And, like, I've heard people kind of, like, with Narcissa sort of skate over her nastiness because of, like, what happens at the end of Deathly Hallows with her. But, like, this chapter, she is just so terrible. Like, you know, she's really unpleasant in this chapter. So, yeah, I would not want that in my store.
Sophia, say more. What makes you say that she's so unpleasant? Because, like, I mean, I agree she's not pleasant, but, like, you know, she's being a bit of a Karen and a bit of a mama bear, but, like, I didn't find anything in this chapter, like, particularly egregious, especially by Malfoy standards.
And I don't have it in front of me, so that makes it a little bit harder. But doesn't she say something kind of nasty about, I mean, the thing is basically, like, she is very much, like, coming down on all of the, like, Death Eater and pure blood sort of stuff with just, I don't know. The truth is, because I don't have it, I can't completely reference it, but they're very much sort of, the two of them focusing on that, like, oh, Hermione's a mudblood, like, just, she is very much, like, standing by being a Death Eater. Even though she's not a Death Eater, like, standing by her family's Death Eater status. And I don't know, I just find her really nasty. Like, people say, like, oh, she was so brave or whatever at the end, and I'm just like, she just seems like a really nasty woman.
Which she was.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't quite agree. I mean, I agree she's a nasty piece of work. But in this chapter, because I'm going over it right now, pretty much Draco is playing up the whole, like, gross mudbloods thing, for Narcissa's benefit, which, like, does make her terrible. Like, again, I'm not saying she's not terrible, but all she does in this chapter is, tell, Harry, Ron, Hermione, like, put your wands away. If you hurt my son again, I will fuck you up. Mm-hmm. And then she does her ominous foreshadowing where she's like, I see that being Dumbledore's favorite has given you a sense of security, and she's like, don't worry, I expect Potter will be reunited with Sirius before I'm reunited with Lucius. So, like, like, a few ominous threats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, Harry started it. And then at the end, like, the really crappy part is where she's like, now that I know the kind of scum that shops here, we'll do better at Twilfit and Tattings.
Yeah, so, like... So exactly what I was saying is, like, she's giving Harry death threats, being like...
I mean, but who doesn't?
I mean, fair enough. Is being like, oh, Hermione is scum and shops here, and, like, Draco is also saying, like, oh, you think she smells bad, basically, and she does not deny that. She's just, like, I think that sometimes people feel so much sympathy for her because of how terrified she is for Draco that they kind of, like, gloss over or forget the fact that she is, like, just as much on the, like, pure blood supremacy track as Lucius is, and just as, like, willing to have cruelty and violence done, like, as Lucius is. That even though she's not, like, is not, like, a full Death Eater, that, like, she is perfectly happy for Sirius to be killed, perfectly happy for Harry to be killed, perfectly happy for Dumbledore to be killed, and I'm sure would be happy for Hermione to be killed, and all other, like, mudbloods in her eyes. Like, I just, like, I think that sometimes, I have some sympathy for her, but I think sometimes people focus on the two scenes where she is sympathetic, and they don't focus on this other scene where she's not very sympathetic in my eyes.
I have no sympathy for her, if that's no, I don't think so. No, I'm not sympathetic to her at all. Mostly for the reasons that you've just mentioned, Sophia.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to articulate this. Like, I agree that she's terrible. I'm used to, like, Lucius being, like, over the top terrible, just, like, in your face terrible. Here, because Harry is giving as good as he gets, and sort of, like, this feels much less of the, like, oh my god, you're so unbelievably horrible to these poor defenseless, like, house elves and children, as much as the, like, well, yeah, I would expect a Death Eater's wife to make a few ominous death threats, especially when, again, Harry started it. So, yeah, I guess sort of this... I guess I've baked into my expectation of Narcissa that she's going to be ominous and bigoted. And so, yeah, nothing in this chapter is, like, in your face awful.
Right.
Like, the way, like, Lucius is when he, like, has Dobby cleaning his shoes as he, like, walks around.
Right. I mean, I think that, there's nothing surprising about anything that Narcissa says or does in this chapter. And I mean, sure, I see what you're saying, that it's like Harry has grown up and he's not going to take bull from anyone anymore, including Death Eater. So, like, he is, like, you know, he is giving as good as he gets, like you said. But I guess my point is less that Narcissa is, like, more awful than you would expect of a Death Eater's wife. It's not like that. It's more that people seem to sometimes forget when they're making arguments about Narcissa that she is also all of the things that she shows herself to be in this chapter, because they focus so much more on what she shows herself to be in the other chapters, which is like a protective mother, you know?
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like people focus more on those other chapters because it's surprising.
Right.
Like, because, if you have in your mind a picture of Narcissa Malfoy, Death Eater, wife and mother, what she does in Spinner's End and in, the Flaw in the Plan, like, that stands out because that's surprising.
Yeah, and it is surprising, and I think that, what I have problem with is, like, when sometimes people take it a step further and make it, like, an argument that she, like, you know, like, completely went over to the other side and, like, showed herself to be, like, you know, I don't know, but sometimes people take it a step too far and make it seem like she just, like, had a complete redemptive arc, and I'm like, no, consistently throughout, her son is her top priority, everyone else she kind of doesn't care about, except her husband, and, like, she isn't, like, proven to be a great person, she's just proven to be a good mother.
Yes. I feel like, for me, like, the thing about Narcissa is not that she's good, it's that she's impressive.
Yeah.
I feel like just sort of seeing her capability, seeing her bravery, her boldness, like, you know, her resourcefulness and the lengths she goes to, it's very impressive. And so that's why I like Narcissa so much. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, she's still a bad person, she's still bigoted and prejudiced and all those other things. Yeah, I just find her impressive and I find her big scenes surprising.
Yeah.
Terrible, but great.
I think she's fascinating.
I get what you're saying.
I think she's a fascinating character, and, like, I think that, you know, I love the fact that it's, like, she has this, like, extremely strong motherly love that is, like, what takes down Voldemort, even though she isn't, like, against Voldemort's principles or anything like that, that, like, the strength of her love is something that he can't understand and like, surprises everyone. And yeah, so I think it's incredible. Yeah, I just, like, I think whenever I read this scene, I'm like, oh yeah, but she also sucks. Like, she's also not nice.
Yes, absolutely true. And for more on that, we will have a Narcissa Malfoy episode coming at you at some time this summer, I believe. So stay tuned for that. So after Narcissa's done being terrible, Draco pulled the robes over his head and threw them onto the floor, before, you know, storming out. And I was like, so he was trying on the robes over his own robes, I guess? Because I kind of can't imagine Draco just, like, ripping off his robes, like, you know, leaving himself in his underwear and storming out of Madame Malkin's.
Unless you believe
I'm sure other fans have imagined that a lot.
But you could also believe he does that as a ploy to get Hermione's attention with his pecs.
If he even has any.
Or Harry's attention. You never know. Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing that more what Madame Malkin is, like, is adjusting is, like, the hem on the bottom or, like, the, like, sleeves, so maybe it, like, doesn't matter as much. And the robes are pretty loosey-goosey, so I guess, yeah, you can just throw it on top.
Yeah. But yeah, because just in my mind I have this picture of, like, Draco, like, you know, ripping up his robes and he's just standing there in his Tighty-Whities. He's like, ugh, I don't want these anymore.
What do you say about that, Potter?
And Draco's just, and Harry's just distracted by the abs, and he's like, what did I say?
So really, he could have diffused this whole situation by just,
He really could have. I mean, in my experience, stripping out to your underwear always diffuses a situation.
You're speaking from experience.
Not sure that's true, but okay.
But so yes, that is Madame Malkin's. And now, we'd just like to point out that this chapter was sponsored by the Ollivander ad agency. Clearly, Garrick Ollivander is a master of marketing. He is going to make sure that your products are sold to nothing but the classiest wizards and witches, that the crowds will be clamoring for whatever magical doodads you have up your sleeve. So if your, sales are sluggish and you're trying to drum up some business, come to Garrick Ollivander and he'll tell you how to make a perfect window display.
Perfect.
Even if it's just a single wand on a cushion.
We call that minimalist, and it's been very effective. It's how...
I mean, it caught
It's
Irvin's
how Ollivander
attention, definitely, so...
It's how Ollivander became the foremost wand maker in the UK. Perhaps even outside the UK, we don't know, because apparently we're not talking about that this episode.
We're not.
Our lips are sealed.
Yes. You know what? Enough talking. Let's listen to some music instead. Because today, on the Pub's Jukebox, we are listening to a song by, obviously, Draco and the Malfoys. And it's this wonderful song called Mother, Stop Being Ridiculous. Which I feel like really sort of captures Draco's energy early on here, where he is trying so hard to tell Narcissa that he is not a child.
Holy crap, I'm the best theater in the world. Alright. Voldemort gave me a job and I'll give it a whirl. It's out of sight. There's one problem I can't see. His mama don't got no faith in me. She keeps asking Snape to watch my back. I don't need him to help my attack. Oh, 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 oh. By myself, I don't need the help of anybody else, 'cause I'm trying hard, I know I'll get it done. Albus will be dead and it will be done by your son.
Alright, and with that, listeners, this discussion has gone on way too long because this chapter is way too good. There's so much juicy stuff to talk about here. We want to talk about Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. We want to talk about, Draco and Borgin, and there's so much to dive into that we're just gonna do it on another episode. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming your way soon. And in the meantime, Lena, thank you so much for visiting us here at the Three Broomsticks. It's been so great having you on.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here.
Yeah. Do you have anywhere on the internet listeners can follow you or find you? Anything to plug?
Whenever you see the name Mrs. Oakgrove, which means Egelund, then that's me. And you can find me on Instagram. And yeah.
I never put the Oak Grove thing together.
Wait, what does it mean?
Okay, that
Oak Grove, that means Egelund.
Her last name.
My last name.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm still not getting it. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That's my last name,
so
and I just
funny.
translated it.
Oh, nice.
That is a beautiful name. Oak Grove. That is so
Thank
cool.
you.
It's very
Yeah.
Wizarding World.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
really is. I love my last name. So, thank you.
And huge thanks again to Laura Young, who bought us this round of drinks at the Three Broomsticks. We clearly enjoyed our drinks very much because we have so much more to talk about. So, if you'd like to buy us the next round, head over to patreon.com/3broomsticks with numeral 3 to sign up. You can also help by rating and reviewing us. And if you like our show, don't forget to tell your friends, enemies, pets, everyone. Word of mouth helps us hugely, and we always love to see your reviews. And we're also on various social medias that Irvin is going to tell us about.
We are. Oh god, we're on so much social media these days. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm never quite sure if we're on TikTok. We'll find
Isn't
out
it
one way or
illegal
the
now?
other. It also might be. Anyway, wherever we are, you can find our assorted handles and our email address in the episode description or on the website. We're working hard to engage more with social media, so, you'll hear about the various essays that we discuss. You'll hear about, I'm sure we're going to post the fan art that I talked about by Makani, and just, it'll be good to hear from you. But also, we really want to hear from you on our website, threebroomstickspod.com, with the 3 spelled out. That's where you'll find links to everything we mentioned, all the essays and stuff. You can submit a topic, and you can let us know your thoughts about this episode. Tell us your thoughts about the economics of British wand makers. Tell us your thoughts about the prefix bathroom, about Draco and his underwear. Really, there's so much to discuss here. We look forward to hearing from you.
And next time we meet at the Three Broomsticks, we will be discussing Draco's Detour Part 2, because we have...
Too fast to detour?
Because we have so much more to talk about. And so, but for today, we have to vacate the pub because Madame Rosmerta needs us out. We've been talking all night.
It's closing time.
It's closing time. Yeah. Last orders have long passed. We have to go. So tonight it's been me, Ev,
Sophia,
and Irvin. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time at the Three Broomsticks. Cheers!
Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butterbeer.
This episode of The Three Broomsticks was edited by Brittany Fisher. The theme song was written and performed by the Faithful Sidekicks. Make sure to check them out at thefaithfulsidekicks.com.
I'm Sophia
Ev
Jenkins.
McLaughlin.
Oh, sorry. Usually I go second, so I...
No, that's on me. That's on me. Yep, Sophia's second. Sorry.
Okay.
We're
Guys,
off
it's
to
going
a great start
today.
Yeah.
No, I want to talk more about the
Irvin,
economics of wand making.
Irvin, I need to do something tonight, so I need to have this finished at some point. So let's move on.
I mean,
And wizarding fashion.
No,
Don't forget the wizarding fashion.
genuinely, we can make this chapter 2 episodes.
Okay.
Because,
How are the
come
economics
on.
of wands related to this chapter, Irvin?
because Ollivander disappeared, and I want
That
to
is
talk
one
about
line.
the other
That
wand
is
makers.
one line. We'll
It's-
make our own episode
Yes, it is
about
the
it.
only time we hear about them.
Oh my god.
Maybe we should have a separate episode just about
Wands?
economics.
Or economics,
and
that's a good
wands.
idea.
Economics in the wizarding
Just
world.
just
economics
economics
actually is a
in
good
the
idea.
Wizarding World.
Alright.
Yeah.
Ugh. Fine. I see how it is. All right. Well, thanks so much, Lena, for joining us for this episode. We clearly all have places to be.
No, we just have things to discuss that are actually in this chapter.
Other wand makers are in this chapter, and they are in no other chapters. It is now
That's
or
not
never.
True. They mention other wand makers in the Weighing of the Wands chapter.
I insulted
I like
Irvin
that.
greatly this night because I commented on him being awake at 1:30 a.m. and I was like, but shouldn't you be asleep now? And he was like, I am insulted. I'm sorry.
At 1:30 a.m. on a Saturday. Bro.